Have you been caught in a connection that feels sacred, yet exhausting, where the more you love, the more you seem to lose yourself? Perhaps you have given endlessly, waited patiently, reached out energetically, emotionally, even spiritually, only to feel distance mirrored back to you. In the twin flame journey, many divine feminines find themselves trapped in a painful paradox, loving deeply while chasing connection, hoping that effort will restore union. This dynamic can leave you questioning your worth, your intuition, and even the truth of the bond itself. You may feel confused, depleted, or silently asking why a connection meant to awaken love feels so unbalanced. What makes this struggle even heavier is the belief that if you stop reaching, everything will collapse. That letting go means losing. That stepping back means abandonment. Yet beneath this fear lies a deeper truth that few speak about and almost no one prepares you for. In today's exploration, we will gently dismantle the illusion that chasing sustains twin flame connection. We will reveal what truly happens energetically, emotionally, and spiritually when the divine feminine stops pursuing and instead returns to herself. This is not about punishment, manipulation, or withdrawal of love. It is about alignment. It is about remembering who leads the energetic field of the twin flame bond. You will be guided through 8 profound transformations that awaken within the divine masculine when the divine feminine releases pursuit and embodies her spiritual essence. These shifts are subtle at first, then undeniable. They unfold not through words or force, but through energetic truth. Through this lens, you will begin to see why silence speaks louder than effort, why presence outweighs pursuit, and why balance, not sacrifice, is the foundation of sacred union. By the end of this video, you will no longer see stopping the chase as loss. You will recognize it as remembrance. You will understand that when the divine feminine stands rooted in her truth, harmony is restored not by chasing love, but by becoming it. This shift changes everything: how you relate, how you wait, how you trust, and how you honor yourself within the twin flame journey. What emerges is not separation, but recalibration. Not distance, but magnetic balance. Not the end of the connection, but the return of energetic order within the sacred twin flame union. Stay with this transmission until the end. What you are about to understand may quietly but permanently change how you walk this path. Sign 1. Spiritual leadership within the twin flame connection. Within the sacred and often misunderstood realm of twin flame connections, spiritual leadership does not arise from hierarchy, power, or control. Instead, it flows naturally through the divine feminine as a result of energetic alignment, inner coherence, and profound self-awareness. This leadership is not something she claims or enforces. It emerges organically as she comes into deeper harmony with her soul's truth and the higher intelligence guiding the connection. Through an intense and often solitary spiritual awakening, the divine feminine is refined by experience. Her journey inward dismantles illusion layer by layer, stripping away conditioned identities, emotional dependencies, and inherited beliefs about love and worth. What remains is clarity. In this clarity, she reconnects with the divine essence within her being, not as a concept, but as a lived reality. She becomes attuned to subtle energetic movements, intuitive signals, and spiritual truths that cannot be accessed through logic alone. As her consciousness expands, the divine feminine begins to navigate the twin flame journey with heightened discernment. She senses when to speak and when silence is more powerful. She recognizes cycles, lessons, and mirrors within the connection, understanding that every trigger carries an invitation to heal, and every separation carries meaning. Rather than reacting from fear or longing, she responds from awareness. This inner stability allows her to remain anchored even when the connection enters turbulence. Her leadership expresses itself not through direction, but through presence. She does not chase, convince, or attempt to awaken the divine masculine through force. Instead, she holds energetic space. Her unconditional love is not self-sacrificial or permissive, but conscious and grounded. It creates a sacred container in which healing can occur naturally. Within this space, truth rises to the surface, wounds are revealed without judgment, and growth becomes inevitable. Because she sees the lessons embedded within the connection, the Divine Feminine becomes a guide by example. Her embodiment of self-respect, emotional maturity, and spiritual integrity sends a silent but powerful signal. It activates awareness within the Divine Masculine, not through words, but through resonance. Her alignment becomes the invitation. Her healing becomes the mirror. This form of leadership extends far beyond the individual twin flame bond. As the Divine Feminine steps fully into spiritual authority, her energy radiates outward. She becomes a living reminder of what is possible when one chooses consciousness over conditioning and truth over attachment. Others feel this resonance, often without knowing why. Her presence awakens remembrance in those around her, gently guiding them back to their own inner wisdom and capacity for transformation. In this way, spiritual leadership within the twin flame connection is not about leading another person. It is about leading oneself so fully that others are naturally inspired to rise. The Divine Feminine does not carry the connection forward by effort. She carries it forward by embodiment. And in doing so, she anchors a higher frequency of love, one that serves not only the union, but the collective evolution of consciousness itself. As you reflect on this first sign of spiritual leadership within the twin flame connection, take a moment to notice what resonated most deeply within you. Perhaps you recognized your own journey in the Divine Feminine's quiet strength, her inner clarity, or her ability to lead without force. If this message spoke to your heart, pause here and let it land. Support the flow of this energy by liking the video and share your thoughts in the comments below. You may also simply type, "I choose embodiment over pursuit," as a declaration of your alignment with this truth. In the next sign, we move deeper into how this inner leadership begins to shift the dynamic itself, awakening powerful changes within the connection that can no longer be ignored. Sign 2. Control dynamics and energetic influence. Within the twin flame connection, the idea of control is one of the most misunderstood and emotionally charged themes. Many interpret influence as dominance, guidance as manipulation, and energetic impact as an attempt to override another's will. Yet in its truest spiritual form, control within a twin flame bond does not operate through force, persuasion, or strategy. It functions through resonance. When the Divine Feminine influences the reality of the Divine Masculine, she does so not by directing his choices, but by stabilizing her own inner alignment so completely that it reshapes the energetic field they share. As the Divine Feminine transcends ego and dissolves unconscious patterns of fear, attachment, and external validation, she begins to anchor herself in soul truth. This inner shift fundamentally alters the frequency she emits. Her presence becomes grounded, coherent, and unmistakably clear. In this state, her energy no longer reacts or chases, it simply is. And it is precisely this state of being that carries transformative power. The influence does not come from intention to change the other, but from the integrity of her alignment with her highest self. With heightened spiritual awareness, the Divine Feminine becomes deeply attuned to subtle energetic exchanges between herself and her counterpart. She senses when energies are harmonized, when resistance arises, and when unconscious patterns attempt to reassert control through fear or avoidance. This sensitivity is not used to manage or correct the Divine Masculine, but to maintain energetic clarity within herself. When she remains anchored in her divine essence, the connection itself recalibrates. The bond responds not to words or actions, but to frequency. It is important to understand that the Divine Masculine's free will and autonomy are never compromised in this dynamic. He is not coerced, persuaded, or energetically overridden. Instead, the Divine Feminine's alignment acts as a catalyst. Her stable frequency mirrors what is possible. It quietly exposes dissonance within him, not as judgment, but as contrast. Where she embodies presence, unresolved fragmentation within him becomes visible. Where she holds emotional coherence, his suppressed emotions begin to surface. This is not because she demands change, but because truth, when embodied, cannot be ignored. Unconditional love plays a central role in this energetic influence. The Divine Feminine does not offer love as a reward for growth or withdraw it as punishment for resistance. Her love is spacious, grounded, and non-contingent. This creates a safe, energetic container in which the divine masculine is allowed to confront his shadows without fear of abandonment or control. Within this space, suppressed wounds, unprocessed grief, and outdated identities rise to the surface, not to overwhelm him, but to be released. Healing unfolds naturally when the nervous system no longer perceives threat. What emerges from this interaction is not submission or dependence, but balance. The divine feminine does not dominate, she stabilizes. She does not lead through authority, she leads through embodiment. Her influence restores harmony to the energetic field, allowing both counterparts to return to their authentic selves. Control dissolves because it is no longer needed. In its place, resonance takes hold, a state where growth occurs not through force, but through alignment. This dynamic reflects the sacred equilibrium at the heart of the twin flame journey. It is not about one rising above the other, but about both being drawn upward by truth. Harmony replaces struggle, presence replaces pursuit, and influence becomes a natural expression of spiritual coherence rather than an assertion of power. Sign 3. The effects of pursuit behavior. Within the twin flame dynamic, pursuit behavior is not merely an emotional reaction, it is an energetic disturbance that alters the natural rhythm of the connection. While often justified as love, devotion, or fear of losing something sacred, pursuit does not arise from wholeness. It emerges from fragmentation. It is driven by unresolved fear, insecurity, and ego-based attachment, all of which stem from a subconscious belief that something essential is missing within the self and must be retrieved through the other. At its core, pursuit is rooted in the illusion of lack. When one believes that love, safety, identity, or completion exists outside of oneself, urgency is born. The mind begins to race, the heart tightens, and the nervous system enters a state of alarm. This creates a desperate internal narrative. If I do not act now, I will lose this connection. In this state, actions are no longer guided by intuition or soul alignment, but by fear. What feels like passion is often panic disguised as care. Ironically, the very behavior meant to preserve the bond produces the opposite effect. Energetically, pursuit compresses the field between the two counterparts. It removes spaciousness, autonomy, and organic movement. The divine masculine, who is already navigating his own internal resistance, wounds, or delayed awakening, experiences this pressure as overwhelming. Rather than drawing him closer, it triggers withdrawal. The natural energetic polarity that allows attraction and growth is disrupted, pushing him further away, not emotionally alone, but energetically. This disruption occurs because twin flame connections do not respond to force, they respond to frequency. When the divine feminine enters pursuit, her energy shifts from grounded presence into anxious projection. Attention moves outward instead of inward. The connection becomes something to manage rather than something to embody. In doing so, the energetic flow between both souls becomes distorted, no longer guided by divine timing, but by fear-based urgency. Over time, pursuit behavior fosters codependency. The sense of self becomes entangled with the response, availability, or validation of the other. Inner growth stalls as emotional energy is diverted toward monitoring, waiting, explaining, or proving worth. Instead of standing in sovereignty, the divine feminine unconsciously positions herself as responsible for the connection's outcome. This imbalance prevents the divine masculine from stepping into his role organically. Growth cannot be forced into another, it must be chosen from within. When one counterpart overfunctions energetically, the other underfunctions. Pursuit removes the divine masculine's opportunity to awaken through self-realization. It interrupts the sacred tension required for transformation. The union becomes asymmetrical, with one carrying the emotional and energetic weight, while the other remains passive or resistant. This is not the design of a twin flame bond, which exists to awaken both souls through balance, not sacrifice. The restoration of harmony begins only when fear-based pursuit is released. Letting go does not mean withdrawal of love, punishment, or emotional shutdown. It means returning attention to the self. It means reclaiming inner authority, grounding into presence, and trusting that what is meant to align will do so without force. When pursuit dissolves, space returns. When space returns, polarity restores itself. And when polarity is restored, the connection is finally free to evolve according to divine timing rather than human fear. In this release, both counterparts are invited back into equilibrium. The divine feminine reclaims her wholeness, the divine masculine is given room to rise. And the twin flame journey realigns not as a struggle for closeness, but as a shared movement toward truth, sovereignty, and spiritual maturation. A clear way to understand this lesson is to imagine the twin flame connection as a shared energetic current rather than a physical distance to be crossed. When the divine feminine is caught in pursuit, it is as though she is swimming against the current, expending immense effort, growing exhausted, and unintentionally creating resistance in the water. Every attempt to move closer generates more turbulence, making the other feel pressured rather than drawn. But when she stops fighting the flow and allows herself to float in alignment with her own breath, balance returns. The water calms. In that stillness, the current naturally carries both souls toward the same center point without force. The divine masculine, no longer feeling pushed or chased, begins to sense the absence of pressure. He becomes aware of the quiet space that has opened within him, a space where curiosity, longing, and self-reflection can arise organically. In this way, the connection evolves not because one pursued harder, but because one chose inner alignment over fear. The lesson becomes visible. When presence replaces pursuit, attraction becomes effortless, healing becomes mutual, and the bond moves forward in harmony rather than struggle. Sign 4. The shift in consciousness. When the divine feminine releases the urge to pursue and instead chooses alignment with her inner truth, a profound shift in consciousness begins to unfold. This moment is not sudden or dramatic on the surface, yet it is deeply transformative at the energetic level. It marks the quiet ending of ego-driven action and the sacred return to divine alignment. No longer guided by fear, lack, or the need to prove worth through effort, she steps into a state of inner sovereignty, where truth becomes her compass and presence becomes her power. As this shift takes place, fear gradually dissolves, and with it, the ego loosens its grip. The constant mental loops, the emotional urgency, and the attachment to outcomes begin to fade. In their place arises a deeper awareness, one rooted in spiritual wisdom, compassion, and universal love. The divine feminine no longer reacts from wounds or unmet needs. Instead, she responds from clarity and inner knowing. Her consciousness expands beyond personal desire into an understanding of divine timing, soul agreements, and the greater intelligence guiding the twin flame journey. This transformation does not occur in isolation. Because the twin flame connection is energetic at its core, the shift within the divine feminine ripples through the entire bond. Her alignment recalibrates the shared field between both counterparts. What once felt chaotic, intense, or unbalanced begins to reorganize itself naturally. The connection moves away from polarity rooted in pain and toward polarity rooted in truth. Without effort or force, the energetic dynamic changes, allowing both souls to breathe, reflect, and realign. By releasing control, both counterparts are freed to embody their divine roles authentically. The divine feminine no longer carries the burden of holding the connection together or pushing it forward. She understands that love does not require chasing, and union does not require sacrifice of self. In this freedom, she becomes a living embodiment of trust. Trust in herself, trust in the connection, and trust in the divine intelligence orchestrating the journey. In this state of alignment, the divine feminine naturally becomes a beacon of light. Her energy speaks louder than words. Her stillness carries more influence than action ever could. Through her grounded presence and unwavering connection to truth, she illuminates the path forward not by directing or instructing, but by simply being. Her alignment serves as an energetic invitation, calling the divine masculine inward rather than pulling him outward. This invitation awakens something ancient within him: remembrance. As the divine feminine returns to wholeness within herself, the divine masculine is confronted with his own inner world. He begins to sense the absence of ego-based dynamics and feels the pull toward authenticity, healing, and self-realization. Her consciousness shift becomes the mirror through which he recognizes his own potential for awakening. Without pressure or demand, he is gently guided back to his soul. Ultimately, this shift in consciousness represents a return to wholeness and divine truth. It is the reunion of inner masculine and feminine energies within each counterpart. The divine feminine's choice to stop chasing is not a withdrawal of love. It is the highest expression of it. Through alignment, surrender, and self-embodiment, she restores balance to the connection and anchors the twin flame journey back into its true purpose: remembrance, unity, and love rooted in divine consciousness rather than fear. This is not an ending. It is a sacred beginning, one where truth leads, love flows freely, and both souls are finally able to meet from a place of wholeness rather than longing. Sign 5. The Divine Masculine Response. When the divine feminine fully embodies her higher self, a powerful yet subtle magnetic pull is activated within the twin flame connection. This magnetism does not originate from desire, longing, or effort. It emerges naturally from alignment. As she anchors herself in truth, self-respect, and spiritual wholeness, her energy stabilizes, deepens, and becomes unmistakably coherent. The divine masculine, who is inherently sensitive to energetic shifts, even when he appears disconnected on the surface, begins to feel this change at a soul level. Something within him recognizes the shift before his mind can fully understand it. This pull is not driven by urgency or fear. It is not the result of pursuit, persuasion, or emotional pressure. Instead, it arises from harmony. The divine feminine's alignment creates a resonance that calls rather than chases, invites rather than demands. In her stillness, she becomes energetically visible in a way she never was while striving or waiting. Her presence speaks in frequencies that bypass logic and reach directly into the heart and subconscious of the divine masculine. As he senses her alignment, the divine masculine feels compelled to re-engage with the connection, not because he is being pulled back by attachment, but because something within him is being activated. Her embodiment of truth mirrors the parts of himself he has suppressed, avoided, or forgotten. The absence of pressure allows space for reflection. The absence of chasing removes resistance. In that space, curiosity awakens, memory returns, the soul begins to stir. This response often arrives quietly. It may begin as thoughts that surface unexpectedly, emotional waves that cannot be explained, or a deep inner questioning about his path, his purpose, and the connection itself. The divine masculine starts to feel the contrast between ego-driven separation and soul-driven unity. He becomes aware that what once felt overwhelming now feels grounding, and what once triggered fear now calls for truth. Her alignment makes avoidance impossible, not through confrontation, but through clarity. This re-engagement is not merely emotional or physical. It represents something far more significant. It marks the culmination of an inner spiritual journey for both counterparts. The divine masculine is not returning to the same dynamic. He is responding to a new frequency, one rooted in balance, self-awareness, and energetic integrity. The old patterns of imbalance dissolve as the masculine and feminine energies begin to harmonize within and between them. At this stage, the connection shifts from polarity rooted in tension to polarity rooted in cooperation. Masculine and feminine energies no longer compete or resist one another. Instead, they complement, support, and elevate each other. The divine masculine begins to step into his own embodiment, grounded, present, and receptive to spiritual truth. He no longer seeks control or escape, but alignment and authenticity. Ultimately, this response signifies the realization of oneness at the soul level. It is the recognition that separation was never real, only perceived through fear and ego. The reunion that unfolds is not about dependency or completion, but about meeting as whole beings. Two energies, distinct yet unified, remembering their shared origin and purpose. This is the sacred response of the divine masculine when the divine feminine chooses herself, her truth, and her alignment. Not a reaction fueled by loss, but a return guided by remembrance. Not a chase renewed, but a harmony restored. Sign 6. Union within oneself. True twin flame union does not begin with another person. It begins within. Before harmony can ever manifest in the external connection, it must first be realized internally. This is one of the most sacred yet misunderstood truths of the twin flame journey. Union is not something that is attained through effort, timing, or another's readiness. It is the natural result of inner alignment, of becoming whole within oneself. This stage of the journey calls for the conscious integration of masculine and feminine energies within the individual. The masculine aspect, clarity, structure, presence, and grounded action, must learn to work in harmony with the feminine aspect, intuition, receptivity, compassion, and emotional depth. When these energies are divided within, the external connection mirrors that fragmentation through distance, conflict, or imbalance. But as they are unified internally, the need for external validation or completion dissolves. Reaching this inner union requires the release of fear, attachment, and ego-driven behavior. Fear of abandonment, fear of loss, and fear of not being chosen are gently brought into awareness and healed. Attachment to outcomes, labels, and timelines begins to loosen. The ego, which once sought control or reassurance through the connection, softens its grip. In this surrender, the individual aligns more fully with the higher self, the part that already knows love, trust, and divine timing. Meditation, deep reflection, and intentional healing become gateways during this phase. Through stillness, hidden truths rise to the surface. Old wounds, subconscious patterns, and inherited beliefs are no longer avoided but lovingly witnessed and released. Emotional pain that once drove reaction is transformed into wisdom. What was once fragmented is integrated. What was once suppressed is honored. In this process, the individual becomes a clear vessel for divine love, rather than a seeker of it. As inner wholeness is established, identity shifts. Love is no longer something that is sought externally, but something that flows naturally from within. The individual moves through life with greater peace, clarity, and self-trust. There is no longer a need to chase, convince, or wait. The energy becomes grounded, stable, and self-sustaining. This inner state is the true foundation of union. When inner union is achieved, the external connection responds effortlessly. Without force or manipulation, the energetic field between twin flames recalibrates. Both counterparts are drawn into greater alignment, not because they are incomplete without one another, but because they are now whole. The connection no longer reflects wounds, but resonance. It no longer activates fear, but truth. Union within oneself is not the end of the journey, it is the turning point. From this place, any external union that unfolds is no longer driven by need, but guided by divine love, mutual recognition, and shared purpose. This is the sacred order of twin flame union: wholeness first, harmony second, and love expressed freely from a state of inner completion. If you've made it this far, take a moment to pause and reflect on what has been stirred within you. This stage of the journey asks for honesty, not perfection, an honest look at where you are integrating, healing, and returning to yourself. Notice what resonates, what challenges you, and what feels ready to be released. Your experience matters, and your story holds wisdom not only for you, but for others walking this path. If you feel called, share your reflections in the comments, and let your voice become part of this collective remembrance. Or, if words feel unnecessary right now, simply type, "I choose inner union," as an affirmation of your alignment, your healing, and your readiness to embody wholeness from within. Sign 7. The power of spiritual influence. When the divine feminine commits fully to her spiritual evolution, her transformation does not unfold in isolation. It moves outward in subtle yet profound waves, creating a ripple effect that reshapes the entire twin flame connection. As she aligns with her higher purpose, she no longer seeks validation, direction, or fulfillment outside of herself. Instead, she becomes a living embodiment of light, truth, and inner coherence. Her presence alone begins to carry a frequency that speaks louder than words, actions, or explanations ever could. This alignment is not performative or intentional influence. It is organic. As the divine feminine embodies her authentic self, she naturally stabilizes into a higher energetic state. Her thoughts, emotions, and actions become congruent with her soul's truth, and this coherence radiates outward. In the twin flame dynamic, where energetic mirroring is unavoidable, this shift becomes impossible for the divine masculine to ignore. He may not immediately understand what is happening, but on a soul level, he feels the change. Something within him is stirred, awakened, and gently summoned forward. Her growth becomes an invitation rather than a demand. Without pursuing, correcting, or convincing, she inspires the divine masculine to confront his own inner landscape. Old patterns begin to feel uncomfortable. Avoidance loses its appeal. The unhealed aspects of his psyche rise to the surface, not as punishment, but as opportunities for awakening. Through her embodiment, she reflects back to him what alignment feels like, what inner truth sounds like, and what spiritual integrity looks like when lived rather than spoken. This influence transcends physical presence and external interaction. Even during periods of distance, silence, or separation, the soul-level bond deepens. The connection moves beyond dependency on proximity and enters a realm governed by resonance. The divine masculine may feel drawn inward, compelled to question his beliefs, reassess his values, and explore spiritual dimensions he once ignored or resisted. Her evolution becomes the catalyst for his own remembrance. As both counterparts begin aligning with their divine selves, the twin flame connection shifts from tension to purpose. The bond is no longer defined by chasing, running, or imbalance, but by shared growth and mutual awakening. They move from unconscious entanglement into conscious co-creation. Together, they begin shaping a shared reality rooted in authenticity, love, and spiritual fulfillment rather than fear or lack. In this stage, the twin flame union becomes a sacred partnership. Each individual stands whole within themselves, yet harmonized with the other. The power of spiritual influence reaches its peak not through effort, but through embodiment. The divine feminine leads not by force, but by frequency. And in doing so, she helps activate a union that reflects the highest potential of both souls, aligned with purpose, anchored in love, and guided by divine truth. Sign 8. Zen Symbolism and Sacred Archetypes. Zen symbolism offers a profound lens through which the twin flame dynamic can be understood, revealing the spiritual architecture beneath the connection rather than focusing on surface behavior. Within this symbolic language, each counterpart is represented not merely as a partner, but as an archetype engaged in an inner initiation. These archetypes do not compete or contradict one another. Instead, they describe two distinct paths of mastery that ultimately converge at the same sacred truth. The divine feminine is often portrayed as the dragon slayer, an image that speaks to courage born from inner stillness rather than aggression. The dragon she faces does not exist outside of her. It represents fear, illusion, unconscious conditioning, and the inherited limitations of the ego. Through spiritual discipline, self-awareness, and deep emotional honesty, she confronts these forces directly. She does not suppress them or run from them. She looks them in the eye and dissolves their power through understanding. This is the essence of inner mastery. Her journey is marked by resilience rather than force. Each challenge refines her clarity, each shadow strengthens her discernment. By transcending fear and illusion, she reclaims sovereignty over her inner world. In Zen symbolism, the dragon is not destroyed, but transformed. What once appeared threatening becomes a source of wisdom. Through this process, the divine feminine embodies spiritual authority grounded in presence, compassion, and unwavering truth. The divine masculine follows a different, yet equally sacred path. He is symbolized as the conqueror of the white tiger, an archetype associated with mastery over primal instincts, external challenges, and worldly obstacles. The white tiger represents raw power, ambition, and the untamed forces of the material realm. His initiation requires action, courage, and decisive movement. Where the divine feminine turns inward, the divine masculine is called to engage the world directly. His journey emphasizes confidence, forged through experience. He learns by testing himself against resistance, responsibility, and consequence. Through trial and effort, he develops strength, discipline, and purpose. Yet this conquest is not about domination over others. It is about learning restraint, ethical power, and alignment between intention and action. The true victory comes when he masters himself, rather than the external world alone. Although these paths appear different, they are not separate. Zen symbolism reminds us that duality is only an illusion at the surface level. The Dragon Slayer and the White Tiger Conqueror are engaged in parallel initiations, each preparing the soul for recognition beyond form. Their journeys are complementary expressions of the same awakening process. The bond between the divine feminine and divine masculine remains eternal, untouched by distance, circumstance, or earthly trials. Soul recognition does not rely on timing, conditions, or outcomes. It operates beyond the visible realm. The symbolism reflects an inevitable return, not driven by attachment, but by remembrance. When the divine masculine completes his cycle of external mastery, he is guided back not by longing, but by inner knowing. This return is not a rescue or dependency. It is a reunion of equals, who have each earned their clarity through their own initiations. Zen symbolism reveals that the twin flame union is not about completing one another, but about recognizing the truth that was always shared. Beyond fear and force, beyond illusion and struggle, the souls reunite through alignment, awareness, and divine recognition that transcends all earthly limitations. As we come to the close of this journey into the heart of the twin flame connection, one truth becomes unmistakably clear. True union has never been about chasing, convincing, or proving worth. It has always been about remembrance. When the ego releases its grip and the need to control dissolves, divine balance naturally returns. Alignment takes the place of force. Presence replaces pursuit. Love rises where fear once lived. This is the sacred turning point of the twin flame path. When the divine feminine and divine masculine step out of reaction and into inner truth, the connection is no longer driven by longing or absence, but by wholeness. Each soul becomes a mirror, not a missing piece. In that space, healing unfolds effortlessly, and union becomes a reflection of inner harmony rather than an external goal. Remember this, you are not walking this path alone. Even in moments of silence, distance, or uncertainty, the bond continues to guide both counterparts toward deeper awareness. Every pause serves a purpose, every separation carries wisdom, and every return begins within. The twin flame journey is not about losing yourself to love, but about finding yourself through it. So allow yourself to release the chase. Trust the intelligence of divine timing. Surrender to alignment instead of effort. What is meant for you does not require force, it responds to truth. When you choose inner harmony, the outer world reorganizes to meet you there. Before you go, I invite you to anchor this message by leaving a comment with the quote, "I choose alignment over pursuit and love over fear." Let it be a declaration of where you now stand on your journey. If this message resonated with you, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who may need this reminder, and continue your journey by watching the video below. Your presence, your reflection, and your voice matter here. With love and gratitude, thank you for being part of this sacred space. Until we meet again, may your heart remain open, your path illuminated, and your soul rooted in the harmony that has always lived within you.